Good morning. Offering okay, so after the offertory, I come over back over here. And then we sing, and then I come back over here. And then I sit down. Pacing sounded pretty good when you were practicing, I thought. Just remember to talk real slow.
I couldn't hear her.
She sounded really pretty measured. Yeah. It's real. Well, think to yourself that you want to talk slower than feel comfortable. It's real easy to do that because you get nervous, and then it makes you talk fast. And then there's that. Except when you're at a podium, then you have to make yourself talk slow.
My parents, if it was possible, my parents would have expected it to be slow down. Yeah.
Well, when people get older and their hearing isn't as good, they can't hear really fast-talking people. It's hard to make out the words, so that's another reason to do it. We have people in our congregation that don't hear that well, including me. Yeah, I don't. I might should, but I don't. Well, I wish Carolyn could have come. I'm doing all her parts and my parts. I know. I'm filling in for her. I know. I'm the backup. She couldn't be here.
You broke it.
But she'll be watching from home.
How did you break it? In what universe? How did you? You just ripped it right off. Very believable. Okay, well, my boyfriend and sister isn't. I couldn't help it. That wasn't necessary evil. Sit up straight. You're necessary. There's some trash. Little violins. I'm like, no, don't just stick it.
Oh, there's a recycle bin out in the narthex in that room right through those doors.
God rest.
For what? No, we got this.
Nervousness is not a thing after
We're
using
chill.
Look at what I'm suffering. Oh, right. You said 2 seconds. Exactly now.
Good morning. Whether you're participating online or here in person, we say, welcome home to Live Oak Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Catherine Enyart, and I am so glad you're here. For our guests, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to the Live Oak Weekly Newsletter. It's the go-to place to know everything that is happening here. There's a link on our homepage. Thanks to all for your continued care in following the current guidelines for in-person service so we can provide as safe an environment as possible during what remains a challenging time. Masks are required of anyone over the age of 2. We ask that you respect our sanctuary layout, observe social distancing, and use gestures of respect and connection other than hugs to greet each other. Children should remain under parental supervision during worship. You are invited to sing along during this morning's hymns with your mask on. Our worship leaders and choir may take their masks off while speaking or singing and will be spaced across the chancel. Above all else, we bring a spirit of joy and a sense of humor into this space this morning. Welcome.
And now, here and at home, let us light our chalice with words of Gordon B. McCuman. Deep calls into deep. Joy calls into joy. Light calls into light. Let the kindling of this flame rekindle in us the inner love of peace, of hope. And as one flame lights another, nor grows the less, we pledge ourselves to be bearers of light wherever we are. Good morning. I'm Cassie, one of your worship leaders today. Our first hymn is Let Christmas Come, number 224 in our gray hymnal. It was written by Reverend John Hanley Morgan and published in 1984. Reverend Morgan served as a Unitarian minister in many churches and was active in peace and civil rights movements, both nationally and globally. This carol reflects his love and feeling of peace and rebirth that Christmas time represents.
Good morning. I'm Izzy, another one of your worship leaders today. Our call to worship this morning is by Clinton Lee Scott. Christmas is more than a date in the calendar. Christmas is a mood, a sentiment, a symbol. It is the quickening of the presence of other persons into whose lives we have invested a part of our own lives. It is a memory of other days when into one's path a special one appeared to turn an ordinary moment or a commonplace into a haloed event. Christmas is a home and hearth, the full, free laughter of children, the remembrance of friends, and a moment of peace amid the noisy conflicts within and without. It is a gathering up of the transcendent dreams of the centuries, signaling in the birth of a child who became the Prince of Peace. Christmas is a time when goodwill is reborn and again made real in the hopes and hearts of us all. Come, let us worship together.
Every week, we engage in the spiritual practice of generosity, combining our resources to support the ministries of this church. Part of our mission is to empower dreams, and this Sunday we will be sharing the offering with the minister's discretionary fund at Live Oak. This fund enables Reverend Joanna to respond to members facing an immediate hardship or others who seek help from our church. Reverend Joanna has used the fund to address such needs as travel expenses to a parent's funeral, school tuition, and COVID-related medical expenses. If you wish, you may make an online offering using the donation button on our website or place a check in the offering basket as it is passed. Our offertory music today is God Rest Ye Unitarians by Christopher Rabel, sung by the Live Oak Choir. This song, a parody of God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen, was written in the 1970s by Reverend Rabel. It was originally intended to poke fun at the Unitarian willingness to celebrate every holiday in December except Christmas. Since that time, however, it's become a kind of anti-Christmas anthem with an audience far beyond its original intent. Dan Harper states, "I always thought of this parody as making fun of Unitarians who take things too seriously. Things like the higher criticism of the Bible and ancient Near Eastern cultures. So seriously that they forget the transcendent values of the Christmas holiday." In that sense, God Rest Ye Unitarians is an extension of Emerson's critique of corpse-cold Unitarianism, a religion that places way too much emphasis on the head at the expense of the heart.
God rest ye Unitarians, let nothing you dismay. Remember there's no evidence there was a Christmas day. When Christ was born, it's just not known, no matter what they say. Oh, tidings of reason and fact, reason and fact, glad tidings of reason and fact. There was no star of Bethlehem, there was no angel song. There could have been no wise men, for the trip would take too long. The stories in the Bible are historically wrong. Oh, tidings of reason and fact, reason and fact, glad tidings of reason and fact. Our current Christmas customs come from Persia and from Greece, from solstice celebrations of the ancient Middle East. We know our so-called holiday is just a pagan feast. Oh, tidings of reason and fact, reason and fact, glad tidings of reason and fact.
Let's go on a journey together. We call it a Unitarian Universalist journey through Christmas time. Today's music and most of our stories are written by Unitarians or Unitarian Universalists. We start our journey with the hymn, "It Came Upon a Midnight Clear." Unitarian pastor Edmund Sears wrote it in 1849 after a fellow minister requested a song for his Sunday school. Sears was deeply saddened over wars in Europe and between the U.S. and Mexico, and this carol contemplates war and peace during the Christmas season. Our first story today is a UU version of the Christmas story, written by Liz James. The storyteller is Jane Justice.
A long, 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 long time ago, there lived a woman named Mary. She was very young, hardly more than a girl, and Mary had a baby growing inside of her, which was a problem in some ways. You have to have a special kind of cuddle to get a baby inside of you, and Mary was supposed to wait to do that until she was married. Now, maybe she didn't wait, or maybe the baby got in there some other way. Either way, Mary was in capital T trouble. She was scared because everybody would be angry with her, and because she had to push that baby out, which really hurts, and because once it was out, she would have to take care of it. And that isn't very easy either. Anyway, to make matters worse, someone was after Mary's baby. Someone wanted to kill it. So she was really scared. Also, it was tax time, which makes everybody grumpy. Although it was different back then because nobody had yet invented paperwork, so you had to go on long trips instead of running around the house opening drawers and yelling about receipts. They had traveled very far on a donkey, which is incredibly uncomfortable, and Mary was exhausted when she started to feel a great pain in her tummy. The baby was coming. At home, there would have been people to help her, people who knew her and loved her and who had pushed out babies themselves, people who would be on top of the situation. But there was nobody like that here in this strange place. Nobody even wanted to give him a place to have the baby, even though Mary's husband, Joseph, went from hotel to hotel saying, a baby is about to shoot out of my wife. Can we do that in one of your rooms, please? So Mary had to have the baby herself, with only the help of Joseph, who was a very nice man, but not even bright enough to trust it to say, can I book a room, without adding, so my wife can scream and bleed all over it? And she had to do it in a barn that was smelly and dark and filled with animals and pokey straw and poop. And she was all crying and wailing and scared, and Joseph was all crying and wailing and scared. She realized that everything had gone terribly wrong. And this was not what was supposed to happen. She decided that the baby was going to have to turn right around and grow up in her tummy forever because she was not strong enough to push it out. Except, it turned out Mary was strong enough. When her brain didn't know what came next, her body showed her what to do. And there was noise, and there was mess, and there were glasses on the floor. Crazy the way that works. They have broken, you see, so there is a problem here. Pardon me. So there was noise, and there was mess, and there was crying, and after that there was a beautiful little baby like you see in pictures. Well, not exactly like you see in pictures, because newborn babies actually look kind of like cross-eyed hairless rats covered in blood and slime, and gaping, drooly, industrial vacuum suckers for mouths. But when their parents look at them, they are the most beautiful things in the world, and the pictures you see are the pictures of the baby seen through Mary's heart, not as the baby actually looked. The way the baby actually looked and smelled is what later prompted the wise guys to hand over a bunch of jewelry and perfume. Because they were not exactly wise men, but they were definitely more objective about appearances. So Mary sat there looking down at her baby and was filled with the most amazing love for her little boy. In that moment, she was no longer a scared young woman huddled in a sea of night with a powerful man trying to hunt her and her family. She was a mother with mama bear love and mama bear power. And she was no longer far from home either, because the love and hope that filled her heart made a family home out of wherever she was. The straw felt softer and the animals were quiet and calm, and she and Joseph cuddled the baby, and they realized how love makes a family wherever you are. We say it all the time, love makes a family, and we make it sound simple, except it isn't. Love making a family is often very hard. It involves crying and darkness and sometimes yelling and mess, and yes, even poop. It involves things not being right, not at all. It doesn't usually fit the first time, and it's often way harder than we pictured. It involves knowing we are not strong enough, but pushing through anyway. It involves these moments of peace. These moments when love makes everything golden and soft and wonderful, and we realize we are so much stronger than we thought. Where we realize that families are not about love making things unmessy, so they are wonderful. It's about love making it so things can be messy and wonderful at the same time. We tell that story at this time of year when the days are short and it's easy to be filled with gloom as we wait for the sun to return. We tell it now because now is a good time to remind ourselves that each of us carries light inside of us, and that nothing is going around you can keep you from letting that light shine. Even when it's hard and messy and sometimes very loud, we keep going. And it's nothing like the things you see in pictures. But it's wonderful anyway.
Our next hymn is I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day. This hymn is based on the 1863 poem, Christmas Bells, by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. The song tells of the narrator's despair upon hearing the Christmas bells during the Civil War, that hate is strong and mocks the song of peace on earth and goodwill to men. The carol concludes with the bells carrying renewed hope for peace among men.
Our next story needs very little introduction. Dating back to 1823, you have most likely heard it many times, but maybe you didn't know it was a Unitarian named Clement Clark Moore who took credit for this poem 13 years after it was published anonymously. In the Untitled, the local newspaper of Troy, New York, his claim to the poem is now in question, and many believe it was actually written by New York writer Henry Livingston. This piece offers a different take on Santa Claus. It gives Santa 8 reindeer and even named them. It described a Santa who could magically sneak in and out of homes via chimney. And it created the cheerful, chubby icon that is represented in holiday cards, movies, television shows, and malls everywhere. A visit from Saint Nick, told by J.K.
"'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mamma in her kerchief, and I in my cap, had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from the bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters, and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new-fallen snow gave the luster of midday the 2 objects below. When what to my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer, with a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles, his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen. To the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away, dash away, dash away all. As dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle, mount to the sky. So up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with the sleigh full of toys, and St. Nicholas too. And then in a twinkling I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur, and his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His drawl-like mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard of the chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and light round belly, and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk. and laying his finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod, up chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh. His team gave a whistle, and they all flew, like the down of a whistle. But I heard him explain, ere he drove out of sight, Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night.
James Lord Pierpont wrote The One-Horse Open Sleigh in 1857. It describes the fun and frolic of driving through fields and woods covered in snow. Though the original has multiple verses, the chorus and verse are ones commonly sung now and known as Jingle Bells. James' father was a Unitarian minister and was brought up in a Unitarian church. He later followed his brother, who was a Unitarian minister, to Savannah, Georgia, and took the position of organist and music director for the Unitarian congregation. Sometimes the history we tell of our past as Unitarians is not pleasant. During James' time in the South, the Civil War was looming. The church in Savannah closed because of its abolitionist stance, and James joined the Confederate Army. He is also known for writing many minstrel songs, which today we would not sing.
Thank you.
It's you, okay.
Our next story is the only piece that isn't by a Unitarian or Universalist. It is a story found in the book Paper Cutting Stories for Holidays and Special Events by Valerie Marsh and adapted as told by Granny Sue, an Appalachian storyteller. Our storyteller is Mark Anderson.
Once there was a boy who wanted to get a gift for his family, but he didn't have any money. "We're going to town," his mother said. "Why don't you come with us? We're going Christmas shopping." "No, thank you," the boy said. "I think I'll just stay home and make some gifts." "That's a nice idea. Stay warm and don't go too far from the house if you go outside." After everyone left, the boy thought and thought and thought about what gifts he could make. He could not think of anything. "I'll take a walk in the woods. Maybe that will give me an idea." He walked outside and then turned by the barn and walked into the woods. He saw a path and started to follow it. And there he saw it, the perfect present. "Wow, that's it. I can give my family a tree, but I need a hatchet to cut it down." He ran back to the house to get a hatchet, and then ran back to the tree. "Gee, this tree is too pretty to cut down. It won't grow back if I do that. I know, I'll dig it up. Then we can replant it after Christmas, but I need a shovel." He ran back to the house and got a shovel, then ran back to the tree. He dug, and finally he had the tree dug up. But it was heavy. "I need a way to carry this tree. It's too heavy for me. I'll go and get a wheelbarrow." He ran back to the house, got the wheelbarrow, and ran back to the tree. He loaded the tree into the wheelbarrow and took it home. Then he dragged it into the living room and set it up. It was hard work, but the tree looked beautiful. Now to get something special. He got a ladder and went up into the attic, and then climbed back down with a big box. He couldn't wait until his family got home. When he saw them coming up the walk, he ran out to meet them. "I have something for you. It's the perfect present. Come and see." They all went inside, and there they saw the most beautiful Christmas tree they had ever seen. Merry Christmas, everyone. This is my present for you.
Our closing hymn is the Spirit of the Christmas Tree, written in 1999 by Joyce Pulley, a Canadian Unitarian Universalist composer. As part of the intergenerational worship service called The Spirit of the Christmas Tree by Pulley and Frank Herning, Joyce Pulley has written many songs for intergenerational singing that are sung in UU congregations, such as One More Step.
Think we have.
I've got a light and it shines in me. It shines in the eyes of a little baby. It lives in you and it lives in me. It lives in the spirit of a Christmas tree. I've got a light and it shines in me. It shines in the eyes of a little baby. It lives in you and it lives in me. It lives in the spirit of a Christmas tree. I've got a light and it shines in me. It shines in the eyes of a little baby. It lives in you and it lives in me. It lives in the spirit of a Christmas tree. I've got a light and it shines in me. It shines in the eyes of a little baby. It lives in you and it lives in me. It lives in the spirit of a Christmas tree. I've got a light and it shines in me. It shines in the eyes of a little baby. It lives in you and it lives in me. It lives in the spirit of a Christmas tree. I've got a light and it shines in me. It shines in the eyes of a little baby. It lives in you and it lives in me. It lives in the spirit of a Christmas tree. I've got a light and it shines in me. It shines in the eyes of a little baby. It lives in you and it lives in me. It lives in the spirit of a Christmas tree. Can I watch?
As our formal worship comes to an end, we wish for you the message and meaning of Advent and the holiday season. Peace, hope, love, and joy.
We extinguish this flame, but we recommit anew to carrying it into our week, the flame of justice and love. May we share with others the courage and strength we find here. We invite you to stay for our congregational meeting, which begins at 10:30 in this space. There are games and activities for children who gather in the fellowship hall. Childcare is available for ages 3 and up on the playground with Miss Harmony.